My name is Thibault Sorret. I am the co-founder and CEO of the Ecosystem Restoration Standard, or ERS for short. Today, the voluntary carbon markets are at a crossroad. In recent months, some have argued that the traceability and accountability of our industry has fallen short. Public trust is low at a time when carbon markets are poised to play a critical role in the fight against climate change. To earn back the public's trust, we need to try a fresh approach. After all, many in this room have spent decades building this industry from the ground up. We cannot let that foundational work go to waste. Fortunately, in the last few years, numerous technical advancements have paved the way forward. Advancements in AI, satellite imagery, cheaper sensors have shown us what the future of MRV could be. Today, we're thrilled to announce the upcoming public consultation of the Ecosystem Restoration Standard. Built upon next-generation digital MRV, this standard is specifically designed to assess and measure the impact of ecosystem restoration projects on the climate, biodiversity, and local livelihoods. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Why another standard? And why another acronym? Acronym, we know you love the acronyms in the voluntary carbon markets, but why another standard? The key thing is, while we're encouraged to see leading standards taking on initiatives to integrate digital MRV, we strongly believe that building a standard from the ground up with digital MRV built in can teach us important lessons. So as not to compete with the leading standards, we've decided to experiment with these innovative approaches on projects that are not currently certified on the voluntary carbon markets, namely small-scale ecosystem restoration projects. More specifically, we're looking at tropical and subtropical forest and mangrove restoration projects with sites ranging from 50 to 1,000 hectares. These projects are typically deemed too small to certify using traditional approaches. For the last 2 years, our team has been working tirelessly on developing this standard and the digital tools that come with it. But we didn't do it alone. On the remote sensing side, we worked with the European Space Agency and the French Space Agency. For the tools on the ground to collect data, we worked with local communities who are on the front line of ecosystem restoration. And for the standard itself, well, we worked with the leading consultancies and industry experts to ensure that we correspond to the most stringent accreditation guidelines. To tell you more about the standard itself, please welcome ERS co-founder Priscille Raynaud to the stage.
Thank you, Thibault. In the next 15 minutes, I will give you a brief overview of the Ecosystem Restoration Standard. I will start by describing the standard's 4 pillars. I will then run you through the 6-step certification process. We will then tackle the governance structure of ERS and end with our issuance mechanism. The standard is based on 4 pillars: ecosystem recovery, carbon, biodiversity, and livelihoods. For each of those 4 pillars, a baseline assessment is performed, and progress against this baseline is tracked quarterly throughout the project's lifetime. Our first pillar is ecosystem recovery. According to the World Resources Institute, 2 billion hectares, roughly twice the size of Europe, are degraded and in need of restoration. Ultimately, ERS-certified projects are restoring the natural environment, and their goal is to reach high levels of ecological recovery on each project. To do so, our standard stipulates that reference models must be used to mimic the function and structure of native ecosystems. ERS-certified projects must restore ecosystem services such as freshwater sources, soil health, and protection against extreme weather events. And restoration techniques must be adapted to local conditions and current states of degradation. When possible, assisted or natural regeneration is highly encouraged. Our second pillar is carbon. The IPCC states that there are no credible pathways left to 1.5 degrees without restoring natural carbon sinks. ERS-certified projects contribute to the creation of medium to long-term carbon sinks, vital in our fight against a changing climate. To ensure the integrity regarding carbon claims made, our standard stipulates that projects must be financially, legally, and environmentally additional. Their permanence is monitored and ensured by the buffer pool for 30 years. Projects are also encouraged to foster positive externalities and to mitigate negative ones. In the case of leakage, it is monitored at a radius of 5 kilometers around the project area on a quarterly basis. Credits are registered on a third-party registry. ERS is also following closely Article 6 developments and aims to stay in line with the latest guidelines. To start, all projects must disclose information regarding carbon credits generated to their national governments. And finally, carbon estimations and monitoring are done using proprietary satellite models based on both SAR and optical data, as well as regional above-ground biomass data. An open access database for ecosystem-specific data down to the species level is being developed in partnership with local research institutions. Our third pillar is biodiversity. The latest Living Planet report found that in the last 50 years, we have lost 69% of biodiversity. ERS-certified projects conserve and augment local biodiversity at the genetic, species, and ecosystem levels. More specifically, projects must recreate habitat capacity and connectivity between ecosystems, thereby contributing to the free movement of species. Projects must also protect or reintroduce threatened, vulnerable, or endangered species that are native to the area. And they must strive to preserve native genetic diversity by planting materials that are genetically diverse and locally sourced. Our fourth pillar is livelihoods. Years of fieldwork and experience in carbon projects have shown that success depends on community benefits and community involvement. As such, ERS is putting community participation at the core of project design, implementation, and monitoring. This means that ERS-certified projects are designed based on stakeholders' needs and aspirations, integrating cultural heritage and traditional knowledge. Project activities must promote social additionality by generating alternative or improved livelihoods. And finally, at least 70% of financing must go to the ground to implement restoration plans and reward the community. Now, what does an ERS certification process look like? ERS is reinterpreting the role and responsibility of a certification body on the voluntary carbon markets. We believe that certification should not be a stamp at a single point in time, but a continuous process spanning across the lifetime of a project. At ERS, there are 6 key steps in the certification of a project. The first step is selection. We select high-integrity developers by running due diligence and assessing their track record. Using historical satellite imagery, a first assessment of the project area is also performed to verify that the project is eligible for ERS certification. The second step is called assessment and approval. Using our proprietary data collection tools, project developers and local communities perform baseline assessments for each pillar and define restoration objectives according to clear methodologies specified in the standard. All data collected is geolocated and time-stamped. In addition, ERS models forest growth over 30 years to estimate changes in carbon stocks. Step 3 is financing. The project needs to secure financing through a purchase agreement with a single funder. Importantly, the end buyer must be in line with scientifically credible net zero targets. The fourth step is validation. An accredited third-party auditor performs in situ measurement to verify information in the project design document. A successful validation audit clears the project to start its operation. Step 5 is MRV. Monitoring is performed quarterly in the field by project developers using templates and surveys on ERS mobile app. Again here, all data collected is time-stamped and geolocated. Reporting is then consolidated annually by ERS using both data collected by the project developers in the field through our app and remote sensing models. The sixth and final step is auditing. ERS-certified projects are audited every 5 years by accredited third-party auditors. Additionally, ERS governance, processes, and tools are audited annually by a globally recognized auditor. I've talked about the standard four pillars. I ran you through our 6-step certification process. Let's now have a look at our governance. ERS is a for-purpose company operating the standard and performing continuous research and development. Any changes to the standard will be subjected to review and approval by an independent technical advisory board. More specifically, the Secretariat oversees the certification process, manages credits issuance on the registry, and accredits third-party auditors. It must collaborate closely with the R&D branch of ERS to ensure that latest scientific developments are tested and integrated within our tools and methodologies. The Technical Advisory Board guides both the Secretariat and the R&D team and has the final say over ERS methodological decisions. To streamline communications and relations between stakeholders of projects certified by the Ecosystem Restoration Standard, we will be launching a coalition later this year. The goal of this coalition is to restore trust and foster higher levels of understanding amongst market players. The last topic that I would like to address is units and issuance mechanism. ERS is introducing a new concept of tradable units called restoration units. They encompass 1 ton of CO2 equivalent associated with biodiversity and livelihood benefits. They're designed to value the multiple impacts generated by ecosystem restoration and to tackle current issues related to project funding. Indeed, most small-scale restoration projects are slowed down by a lack of access to upfront funding. Financiers, on the other hand, are increasingly looking to invest early in projects prior to their full certification. Based on pioneering work from the likes of Vera and Plan Vivo, we've decided to opt for a multi-stage issuance mechanism. So to start, projected restoration units are issued at project start. Following ERS annual digital verification, projected units are transformed into verified restoration units. And then following the 5-year audit by an accredited third-party auditor, verified units are transformed into audited restoration units. Only audited restoration units can be retired. Importantly, if unavoidable reversals occur due to extreme weather events or other natural disasters, verified and audited units will be compensated through a buffer pool mechanism. The buffer pool is built from a flat 20% contributions of all issued units. The buffer pool is not project specific. It is common to all ERS certified projects. This standard is the result of 2 years of research and development and addresses most market concerns. But it is not perfect. Before I let Thibault conclude, I wanted to share with you the 3 key questions that drove major decisions of our standard. How do we get small, community-led projects off the ground? How do we strike the right balance between accessibility of the certification to the local communities and robustness of the certification? And how do we scale measurement tools for biodiversity and livelihoods? Thank you.
Thank you, Priscille. Now, more than ever, we need to harness the power of the voluntary carbon markets to combat the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. Built upon next-generation digital MRV, we believe the ecosystem restoration standard can contribute and add to the foundational work carried out by the pioneers who've built this industry. Now, we want to hear from you. If you want to be ahead of the curve, we encourage you to take part in shaping our standard by participating in our public consultation starting March 21st. For CIFB attendees, we have an exclusive preview of the standard available today in both hard and digital copies. I highly encourage you to come see me, Priscille, or Victoria and Henri, different members from the team here, to learn more about the standard and maybe book a meeting with us to get you on board for the public consultation. It will be a 45-day public consultation, again, starting March 21st. A massive thank you for taking the time to listen. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let's eat lunch. Thank you.